So this last video is specifically in regards to Darrell Brooks, people like Chase Allan, as well as Jonathan, and similar folks when it comes to this specific topic of sovereign citizens. And I find that an interesting subject that they bring up of sovereign citizens because I, as well as my direct associate, personally know 8 people at minimum who have actual official recognized IDs that have been furnished in court. You know, thick like a credit card IDs that show and prove they are authorized, applicable state nationals in the law. And even in the Supreme Court, apparently, as well now. So when this topic comes up, I always think of these people who call themselves sovereign citizens as something that should be called out for what it is, because they make for great impostors of what I would recognize as actual, legally credentialed state nationals. They are claiming to be sovereign and also be a citizen at the same time. When it comes to this key issue, this is the question I would ask, especially after each of us have gone through everything from, being arrested to being back into court to going back through the process again to acknowledging that our estate name is actually now on the land. Here is the question that I would ask each of them, including Mr. Brooks, Jonathan, and Diane Allan. They claim to come from a long line of extremely intelligent, intellectual citizens who they state know the law. I would ask what makes them think that they know more than any other citizen on the street. They do not express sovereign qualities, and so this makes me question their stance of being sovereign in any respect. So it's a simple question. Why do these sovereign citizens believe they have more knowledge about the law or about anything than any other citizen you meet, whether in the supermarket or on the street corner? And that is the key issue I would bring up about that. You will see in these videos when they continually use the circular logic of the law when they are not actually even sovereign at all, since they are still legally recognized U.S. citizens, or citizens, to be honest. And in that respect, when I look at these recent trials that have gone on with Mr. Brooks, as well as Allan, and similar folks, including Derek, they make the law more of a mess, not ever less. Thank you.
Tomatoes, okay?
No. It's not tomatoes,
Sir,
tomatoes.
listen, again. Like I said, I'm recording this, you're recording this, that's great. Provide me with your paperwork, and we can go from there. Okay?
Here's my paperwork.
Thank you, sir. You're having...
So I'm going to point out one important thing. There is not two different things. No. When you are still domestic, and you are in nearly all cases, when you are legally a citizen, still, okay? When you are operating in the domestic arena, you are required to follow all of those laws, regulations, and rules. If you do not, your vehicle, as it's called, will be repossessed and will be taken away. So this person, in every single respect of the word, is still domestic. Let me make that explicitly clear. They are domestic. They operate in the domestic line, always of commerce or otherwise. Now, if this was an actual lawful state national, if this is someone who had truly done what is required, and they had a legal ID, and they were lawfully backed up by their local assembly, and the officer, okay, this is what I wanted to point out here. The officer, whoever was involved, did something explicitly illegal, such as they attempted to remove them or something like that. Okay? That would immediately be taken over to the jury, and they would haul, okay? This is how serious it is. They would haul that officer, they would haul the individuals who were giving those orders and directives into a court and into another jurisdiction where they would be indicted on different charges, and they would face severe repercussions for doing anything approaching that with someone who is actually a legally qualified, for example, state national of their state, okay? Because again, they've done what is required. They've proven under the law they're not a citizen. And they're working very, very carefully with respect to that because they only operate, in most cases, non-domestically. So that's how serious this gets very quickly in certain cases like that. But when I'm talking about this person, absolutely nothing is going to happen because this is a sovereign citizen, and I want to make this explicitly clear. They operate only on the roads and the freeways in the domestic sense of the word. They have absolutely no relationship or crossover in any sense with anything that relates to non-domestic or anything that relates to issues that are not a part of driving on the freeways as a citizen. And they are required under the law to obey every single last directive, or the vehicle, not the car, because it's always called a vehicle, will be repossessed, and they will have nothing. And this person is certainly on their way to being locked up.
Insurance for this vehicle and the registration.
This insurance, yeah. I'm a reaching area.
Right, that would be great, thank you.
Somebody who's actually even interested in this aspect of the law would not have anything to do with insurance whatsoever, because they're not operating in anything to do with the domestic part of the law. So that's an interesting thing to know.
Constitution, correct?
Sir, for my safety and yours, remain inside your car.
Well, vessel. It's not a car.
Oh my God, who the hell cares?
You gotta get that shit right. Don't be labeling this shit as something. Because as soon as you do, that's their little code words.
Now, he's lying. They do not ever call a vehicle in any kind of situation a vessel, unless it's something to do with transporting packages everywhere across state lines and shipping items. There's no crossover with the word vehicle or vessel, not in any capacity. And I mean this very sincerely, not in any capacity and not in any sense under the laws of the USA.
Car, motor vehicle, all of that.
That is a motor vehicle. Nothing about that is a car. Okay? Legally, you can look it up. It's defined always as a motor vehicle. They are driving in commerce as a citizen. No matter what they would say to the contrary, they are. And therefore, it is always a motor vehicle. And it is never referred to as a car. And you are not allowed to do so. Because again, that's the domestic side. And there is no word like car ever on the domestic side.
Push it into the driveway.
You have any warrants or anything like that?
No.
No? Okay. Alright, just hang tight. I'm gonna make sure you got a license.
No.
If that's the case, you got Grandpa over here that can help you out, then we'll get the car in there. What'd your dad put under the seat here?
To be honest, I was looking out this rearview mirror the whole time. I didn't see.
So what did he put under the seat there? Is there gonna be drugs in this car?
No.
You sure?
I'm positive.
You're 100% positive.
I'm positive. None of us do drugs.
Alright, because I'm gonna look right there.
Alright.
Okay?
So he has private things in the vehicle, that are not supposed to be there, and allegedly paperwork and things. That happens a lot. Everything that took place here, though, is how you never handle anything to do with driving. Thank you. Okay, one other issue. This is Sheridan. Citizens are normally not allowed to do recording of anything. I mean, sometimes they can if it's permitted in that specific city. But this is just another example of that. This is a citizen.
Police department where?
Right here in the city. See your driver's license and insurance, please.
I don't have driver's license.
How come?
First of all, they're not required.
Okay.
I have identification.
All right. May I see that, please?
Sure.
Insurance card?
I'm going to pull it up.
Okay. You have it on your
I
phone?
do have insurance.
Oh, okay, great. You find the insurance, sir? I'm sorry? Do you have a license, ma'am? You don't? Okay. All right, sir. Do you mind step over here for me, please, in front of my car?
Sure. What's going on?
Well, apparently you got a couple of warrants out for your arrest.
For what?
Just some tickets you didn't pay. For where? From here, from the county. So I need you to turn around, put your hands behind your back.
All right, they're going to take me to jail.
All right, put your hands behind your back, sir.
Somebody get my stuff.
We'll get to that in a second, sir.
So, interesting, and of course they were going to be stopped, but I wanted to point out one vital issue that I think people are going to want to remember when they go back and they review this. This individual had a regular state licensed ID and so on, and has absolutely nothing, and certainly nothing that is proven to be upheld in court either regarding the phrase non-domestic. Okay, so just wanted to point that fact out. You have to have an actual state authorized ID card or ID that identifies what you are as a non-resident alien that actually has legal terms on it, under the phrase non-domestic. Non-domestic is a very, very key legal term, because non-domestic means that individual in that respect is non-domestic to essentially the U.S. or the United States and so on. They are non-domestic overall. And that ID card looks absolutely nothing like some license card or anything coming out of the DMV areas or anything approaching that. It's a very specific card that actually makes it 100% clear in certain cases that the individual is non-domestic. Therefore, they are able to travel. Not in all cases. However, they can exercise their right to travel whenever they choose. This individual has absolutely nothing approaching that, and that's all that needed to be said.
Early in intention.
You sound like a well-spoken gentleman.
Thank you, sir.
So let me ask you a question, just for my knowledge here. What does all that mean?
That means that the Uniform Commercial Code, I didn't enter into a contract with the United States government. I didn't accept the United States dollar as a contract, which is what it is.
So how you buy yourself?
And the last thing I'll say is, yes, you did. When you got tied up with anything to do with that contract, whether it be from the DMV or anywhere else, and you did not do your due diligence on what that truly entails, what that means, you entered into that contract whether you knew anything about the contract or not. You entered into it by your own consent. And so these individuals who are doing this all the time, they are still citizens. No matter what has ever been spoken otherwise, they are still citizens. Key issue. Thank you.
want you to. If you take off, it's a felony. So don't do that.
Yeah, stop listening to.
So of course, I'm not going to play any more of that. But that's a sovereign citizen who essentially runs around, doesn't have any kind of real insurance in actuality, and they just go ahead and run around doing whatever that they do, that they do, of course. And I just want to point out only one single thing about this key issue. You cannot have anything to do with the right to travel, work correctly, especially when it is a propaganda person like was proven really in this video. But you cannot have anything to do with the right to travel in any capacity, work correctly, if you have identifying documents that show essentially you are a citizen or you are part of the U.S. Period. Full stop. And people will say, well, there's no kind of real legal proof to show that somebody is not a citizen or something like that. And I will indicate again, that is 100% untrue and is actually false in the court system. My associate has a legal ID who's a real, actual, non-resident alien who sometimes employs sovereign law for certain things, okay? They have a real, actual state-issued, state-authorized ID that states non-domestic on it. That's legally been passed through different courts. It's been in the Supreme Court as well. And it says, do not bother the individual who owns or possesses this ID. Do not detain and do not contact in certain cases. For the most part, both him, his wife, and so on, never get bothered or approached by anyone. And they're very concise with certain things, but they're polite, and they do not get approached because they have a legal ID that's an authorized official ID that proves, essentially, in a legal court of law or elsewhere, even in a state court of law in certain cases, that they are in fact not a citizen, that they're just simply a non-resident alien, and therefore they have earned, I want to make that 100% clear, the right to travel. And they do have that law applied to them in certain key circumstances. And they do not do anything with insurance because they have proven, literally, with an authorized official government ID, that they are not some citizen of anything. So that's why I wanted to point out there. These people here are, I don't know what anybody else is saying, but I do know for a fact they are registered with insurance policies and all the rest. They are still citizens. No matter what anybody says or makes as an argument about this, this is factual, and it's been proven in the court records that these people are indeed citizens doing whatever they're doing. They are still citizens.
To the idiot on the phone, try.
Detain him, just watch the passenger.
Okay, so you initially made the traffic stop?
No headlight, no license plate. I can't verify the VIN because he's got the VIN covered up front, and he's refusing to uncover it. So I'm towing his stuff, and he hasn't provided insurance.
So, but he doesn't want to come out?
I haven't talked to him yet. I was waiting for y'all because they are highly antsy right now. I need somebody to watch the passenger. Yes. So. Okay.
And people wonder, one last thing I'll say, and that's it. What is a non-resident alien in respect to, for example, the United States? In nearly all cases that we have run into, a non-resident alien is someone who was a part of the original United States of America. I won't get into it any further than that, but they're part of the original USA and original states. If they do not have proof, if they do not have official identification, which means official identification non-domestic, then they are not in any capacity belonging to that in any form. However, if they do have official identification, that's been proven, or that's on a court of record, that actually proves officially that they belong to the USA, which is basically, that's just simply the original USA. That's allegedly the unincorporated USA, so on. That's fine. Or the States of the Union. Sometimes people call it that. If they do not have that, they are still a citizen. And no matter what anybody would argue out there, especially in regards to these cases, they are still a citizen. They are absolutely still a citizen.
For equipment violations.
No, sir.
Wait, that logic doesn't.
Thank you.
3-month span. They would take your car and say if you couldn't pay the money to reimburse or put the loan back to the current standard, they would put your car in the auction after 15 days of non-payment and sell it off.
First of all, the whole idea and analogy of the word vehicle only applies with citizens themselves, literally, in the legal sense, with respect to that term of vehicle. Because anyone who's essentially proven to be a citizen is domestic with respect to any of the roads, with anything to do with travel, with anything to do with the laws of the U.S. They are domestic with respect to that. So when he says that the car can allegedly be put into a loan or these other different things, again, the car isn't even legally defined as a car. I wanted to make that 100% clear here. Unless it is in something in relationship to the words non-domestic. Non-domestic. It's defined always as a vehicle no matter what anyone says, if it has anything to do with the jurisdiction of domestic. Which anything to do with this car, anything to do with this vehicle, anything to do with the insurance or anything else surrounding this, with what he keeps speaking about, is domestic.
And I be looking at people like, damn, the banks is cold because it's like, people are very hard working and they pledge their everything for this vehicle. And
It's what they do in respect to citizens. Always. Citizens have actually no real rights. They have privileges in everything. So that's what they do with respect to citizens. They don't secretly set up an insurance policy somewhere that somehow gets the vehicle some kind of special identification. So let me make that clear. That never occurs. If you're talking about anything in respect to vehicles, domestic, that does not ever occur. They are always registered.
have to pay your bills, and people just jump head first, but they not, they not understanding the whole thing. Look, me not paying the car note saves a lot of money. Me not paying the mortgage saves a lot of money. So I can keep the money I was going to pay for the car note and keep it in my pocket. I don't have to worry about the banks no more.
That's incorrect. That's all I'll say there. That's incorrect. If you have a vehicle, if you are in any way with respect to the roads domestic. In this case, this person and all of their friends are domestic. No matter what they've claimed, otherwise they are domestic, which makes them legal citizens of the U.S. and so on, all the rest of this. Then you have to take care of every single aspect of that. There is nothing that says that you can just go ahead and ignore what goes on with the vehicle. That vehicle will be automatically towed, will be automatically repossessed, whether it's by a bank or a private individual. It will be taken away.
That's the EIN that got this.
Again, you can't.
And also, I can have many bank accounts as I like.
No, this is absolutely 100% incorrect. That's right. So one thing I'll point out about this, you can have a bank account set up. Yeah, you absolutely can have a bank account set up if you are one thing: non-domestic. You're not operating in the domestic arena of the law. And that essentially means that you have qualified with a bank set up, wherever that bank happens to be, with, for example, not ever a tax ID, but with like a employee ID number or similar, okay, which is an EIN, okay, and you've gone through that process to be able to do that, because most banks will not accept an EIN at all. They will require a tax identification number, and if you don't have one, you do not ever open a bank account. So what this man is saying here, and the other woman who was speaking before, is false. You cannot open anything to do with a bank account unless you have a tax ID or international tax ID number. And in some cases, you know, a required, legally qualified SSN, which is the same as a tax ID number. Now, there are people who open up bank accounts, yeah, who do not have any of those. That's absolutely true. But they are non-domestic. They are not domestic in any sense of the word. And that legal term of non-domestic is going to be something important that people learn about. That allows you to have a bank account in certain circumstances when it's set up correct, with nothing next to your name. Nothing except perhaps an employee ID number. Okay? That's the only aspect that really flies, you know. You have to be willing to look up what is required and what it takes to truly be non-domestic as it concerns United States commerce or any aspect of commerce.
That's the name of the game, y'all. We gotta learn how to play the credit game. Just play it's a game. Let's just play the game. Play the game for what it is. Not what you want it to be. I have people call me, man, how can I discharge the car note? The bank's got your real address. The banks have your real social security number. And you sign a promissory note stating that you will pay it. So even if they want to make a claim in court, they can make the claim. So you can have the vehicle, but the vehicle right in your garage. And not only that, it's going to go on public records under that social security number.
This is false, other than one statement that they've made, and that is the vehicle is always registered under the tax identification number. No matter what anyone has said to the contrary, the vehicle is always registered and verified under the tax identification number. Okay? because that's what it is when it comes to domestic policy, aka domestic law, in any kind of situation regarding the United States. Now, there is another aspect to it known as non-domestic, which doesn't even use the terms most of the time at all, a vehicle or anything approaching that language at all. Because non-domestic, okay, I'll make this clear one more time. Non-domestic has absolutely no crossover with domestic. And this person, this citizen, is domestic with respect to everything that occurs inside the United States. They most certainly are.
Nothing can happen to me because it's not illegal to not pay debt. But you want
It is illegal to not pay your debt, to not pay your insurance, to not pay anything if you are domestic. If you are still domestic with respect to the U.S. or whatever anyone calls that, because some people attempt to apply a different term to it, it is illegal to not pay for those things. And that's why after a certain amount of time, when he kept talking about the vehicle and they kept on going back, putting on broadcast, speaking about the vehicle, they all got locked up. I hope you've learned some interesting things from these videos. These are actual sovereign citizens. They are people who do everything with respect to the term sovereignty incorrectly. And this is why they never gain any respect. Thank you.
International notarial witness for the United States of America, unincorporated.
Now, this is absolutely false. This person is not in any way a part of the American states or the American State Assembly. I wanted to point out the importance of detailing this fact because you cannot go into a courtroom, any courtroom, as far as I've been aware, okay, and claim to be an international notary witness for the international United States when you have no qualifications as a notary at all. And on top of that, when the assembly, specifically the state assembly and similar participants, have never heard of you at all.
I had those for the driver's license on my phone and birth certificates because I do remote notarization for people.
You cannot do remote notarization for whoever you want using a driver's license, ID card, or any of the following issues of identification whatsoever. The only way you can ever be a notary, let me make this explicitly clear, the only way you can ever be a notary is if that is something that has been set up beforehand, whether it be with your local county directly or even with the assembly that you're lawfully a part of, and so on. And they do not play at all with cameras or anything like that. So when they do it in a very, very appropriate manner that does not include ever standing up in a courtroom anywhere and declaring that they are an international notary witness for the United States, whatever the international United States is, okay? You cannot just stand up in any courtroom and say, I am an international notarial witness for the United States or for Denmark or anything else. If you are legally a citizen and you have nothing to do with those procedures and you have absolutely really nothing to do with the assemblies or anything of the sort, you cannot go into any courtroom, I don't care where it is, and claim that you are an international notary witness for another country or for United States. You cannot do that. And I'm just pointing out again, this person did that and they ended up going to prison.
I had 4 conversations on how we educate the officers to know the difference so people are not harmed on the side of the road. I wasn't even on the side of the road. I was parked in front of the police station when all this went down. I wasn't even in my car. This officer got in my face back in April, and he stood. I probably would have ended up going home to a dead dog in a house full of crap. But that gentleman, the people that I took in who were homeless, called my girlfriend and said she didn't come home last night. Well, my girlfriend knew that I was on my way to the post office in Live Oak, and she knew I was going to stop by and talk to the sheriff. So, first call she made was to the Swanee County Jail. Second call was to the Hamilton County Jail, and she found me.
So this person has an actual driver's license ID and all these other different things, apparently issued by the state, and they're claiming to be an international notary. When you can never claim anything like that in any court of law, if you do not have permission of the people who would make a claim even similar to that. Not only can you not claim that, I'm making this clear here, okay? You cannot ever even announce that to anyone unless you have a legally qualified ID which looks absolutely nothing similar in any respect to a license for a driver's license or any of these other cards that they use, and actually states on it that this is for such and such from such and such location or belonging to this assembly. And they do not ever broadcast to anyone. Let me make that explicitly clear. Whether on the internet or otherwise, they do not broadcast ever what those specifically are or what they look like, because there's people all over like this person here who are running scams every single day. So they do not even broadcast what it looks like, but it's an actual official ID card, government ID, that has absolutely no resemblance to what they use here in these courtrooms. And it has nothing to do with the Department of Motor Vehicles. In fact, it has nothing to do with any of those agencies at all. And it's a thick, actual ID card. So it's a legal card. So when they go out there and they go into the court or they go into the Supreme Court and they claim that they're an international notary for the United States, I'm just going to point out one thing. What type of pharmaceutical are they smoking?
I was sitting in jail. I've never been in trouble with the law before.
That's false. She had more than 3 different arrests in previous interesting history. And that's all for now. Thank you. This person is not at all meaning anyone anything good. This person is Darrell Brooks, 2.0. So I'd like to put a spotlight on it. It's interesting what is spoken here.
Silly. I just want to put your feet in for it. Please just listen to my officer. Just listen to my officer. Get you some water. We'll make you some comfortable. Right now, we got to do what we got to do. All right? Okay? Just please comply, Matthew. All right? I'm here. All right? Okay? Just comply with this. All right? We'll make you comfortable here in a minute. All right? Just relax. Watch your leg. Okay? You watch him for a second. I didn't get a chance to pat it down. Mary 1, can you run Matthew Tucciarone from in-house, please, and after the call? I believe that's going to be my driver.
And then that's the last thing I'll point out. If he had just not said a word and not kept arguing or bringing up terms like jurisdiction or anything else, he wouldn't be off to prison. He probably would have been let off with a warning to go ahead and get it corrected about whatever occurred with that vehicle. Bottom line. But my overall point of bringing this up is you are not allowed to do anything with respect to the right to freely travel if you are still domestic in certain capacities when it comes to the United States. If you are non-domestic and you have been able to qualify that and fully prove that, you can in certain situations employ the right to travel. Always. Otherwise, though, you cannot. Thank you.
There's a river inside the car.
You don't understand that? I don't understand you either.
I'm not as
Please
learned as
provide
you.
answers.
I'm not as learned as you.
Am I not allowed to ask you questions if I don't understand
I already tried to
something
talk to
that's
you.
going on?
I already tried to talk to you.
Well, were you not giving me commands?
Yes,
Why
I was
would
giving
I
you commands.
accept your commands and orders if I have done nothing wrong?
Define doing.
Please, for every order that you force me to do under threat, duress, and coercion.
Okay.
So,
Again, one thing I'll point out, and that's it. You are not allowed as a citizen, and this individual is just another citizen, of course, you are not allowed to ever issue any kind of commands or tort claims or anything of that variety, shape, or size in any courtroom in the country, actually. When you are still a citizen, the way this individual is a citizen, you cannot make anything happen. You cannot go, ooh, presto, let's get justice. You are not allowed to even file these kinds of claims, actually, in most jurisdictions, when you are legally known as a citizen. That's something they don't teach a lot of people, but that's true also in law, in the law school when you learn about it. You are allowed to, in certain cases, especially when it's an extreme situation, allowed to do it when you have no relationship to the word citizen, when you are not, as they say, domestic. And in that case, you can really get things moving. Otherwise, though, you are not allowed to do anything to do with filing claims against whoever you like. For example, in the Supreme Court, especially when you are a registered citizen, as these people in this video have been proven to be.
do you understand that?
I don't.
That you're going to be liable for the time that you've taken from me today?
Super.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you. I do not consent to you doing this. Do you not know under the law that you have to produce a
When you want to talk like a.
You do not have to produce any kind of ID with someone who is just an everyday citizen, for example, a sovereign citizen, who is also legally in many states committing crimes. You do not have to identify yourself. Whether you're just a private citizen, for example, meaning whether you are an actual lawful state national, for example, whether you are someone who works for the police in some capacity, whether you are someone who works at the drugstore and the pharmacy. You are not legally required under any law, not even the actual state laws, the original state laws, to identify yourself to someone who is a belligerent citizen. And a belligerent citizen is most commonly a sovereign citizen. Thank you again.
In order for us to do business together, don't you think that you need to provide me with your business?
You're under arrest.
You're not doing business together. You are required by contract at the very beginning, because you are a citizen actually, in a way. So you are under contract and doing business with them, whether you knew that or consented or not.
They're not getting anybody out of this fucking truck. That window don't work. It don't work. Come over here. It don't work. Come over here.
Gotta go to that window.
That window don't work, James. Come over here. That window don't work. No. Hey! Stop trying to damage my property. Do you not understand what USCC 241 is? Or 242? Do you not understand what USC 241 is? You guys are fucking on...
Make contact with me on the other side.
That window don't work. Damaging my window.
Why in the hell? I'm going to get screwed.
Lady, you were...
Trying to harm you guys? Hey, what's your name and badge number? Do you see what these people are doing to us right now? They want to fucking just invade our fucking space. They don't understand they're working outside the color of law.
Okay. Last thing I'll say on this. You cannot ever make a threat or a promise or anything of the sort to sue anybody when you are still a registered citizen of the United States domestic, which this person, of course, is. So the next part that they're going to engage in is they'll drag them out of the vehicle. But you cannot do that at all. At least in the legal sense, you cannot really do that at all to any effect, unless you have certain things that you've resolved properly for yourself, and you have absolutely no nexus with the domestic side of the law.
That car? I don't answer questions.
You can say, I don't answer questions, and then the next part is they'll take you out of there. Citizens of any type, especially this, do not have rights to argue about anything as it concerns the law.
The attorney in the case, I said, well, who's the attorney in the case? They can't. Crooks who are competent non-lawyers can assist other members of the group achieve the goals of the group in court without being charged with unauthorized practice law. See NAACP versus Barton and 3.
Okay, so only one thing that I'll point out here. He is lying, obviously, because not just anyone can lawfully practice law, especially in a case where they are not a member of a local bar or anything like that, and that actually isn't set up that way to create private memberships or something for attorneys the way that they think. It's actually set up and designed that way to keep people like this from believing that they can practice law. And again, sovereign citizens use this argument constantly, that they can practice, that they can represent. And what does that mean, to represent someone who they've never encountered before? I mean,
Not handle anything. It's not us.
Okay.
We don't appoint that.
Right. So basically, the judge would demand or order him to hire the county's public defender's office, right?
Well, no, he wouldn't hire the public defender's office.
so in those circumstances, would you ever hire the county's public defender office? I just wanted to point this out. Sovereign citizens use this argument all the time, that they're going to hire the defender's office something to that effect. The only purpose of a sovereign citizens arguments is to make real Americans, including real Americans who do use sovereign law in certain cases, especially sovereign actual state nationals who are, authorized state citizens, is to make them look like they're somehow, absolutely brain dead or something like that. That's their only purpose. He's not trying to do anything constructive. He just wants to make regular Americans, including sovereign, actual state nationals, to be honest, make them look like they are complete fools. So his lies don't really last for that long.
Okay, so is he willing, if he didn't want to hire, or let's say he didn't want to apply for a public defender, he wouldn't get held in contempt for that, right?
Well, technically.
And actually, no, they would always be held in contempt. So no matter what anybody says, do not take legal advice.
The way that the government has set things up is that we're really enslaved.
Okay.
And so, for me, becoming a sovereign is the same thing Ben Franklin did, it's the same thing George Washington did, and hopefully, everyone, you, your cameraman, all the people that are out in the news will be able to gain their freedom back and be freed from the slavery of the system. And so, for me, it's not about revolution. It's not about hating my country or my government. It's about loving my country, and I hope that people would join in, and I think you're going to see a lot of people hopefully change their hearts, because that's what this is about. This is about the people, we the people. I have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as does everyone. And so the way the system is set up, they're taking that away. From speed cameras to taxes to, you go right down the list. I mean, everything that happens today is for money. It's not about anything. It's not about justice. The way it works is there's God, and then man, then the government. And what the government has done is they said it's God. Well, there is no God. It's just the government. The government is God, and we have to listen and obey them. We have to bow down and worship them. And so, that's not our country.
That's
our country is
a
about being
false
free
statement.
under God.
At least
This
I've
is
never
about
seen
being
evidence
lawful.
of it.
This is about doing the lawful thing. And so, how do we do it? There's no way for us to fight in the system. But there is ways for me to fight as a sovereign. And when I declare my sovereignty, I'm saying I want to free all Americans. I want everyone to be free.
You can't
And
ever
I
do
don't want it to be
anything
violence.
for anyone
I don't want it to be through separatism.
when you are a citizen,
I don't want to go move into some encampment in the middle of
aka
nowhere. I don't
a
want to
sovereign
take advantage or hurt
citizen.
anyone. I want to be free.
American thing that says you don't have to follow the rules or whatever, that's cool, man.
It's our sovereignty right that we don't have to abide by mandatory, dictatorial laws.
Yeah, that's what he said. Is this really worship to cause all this?
Well, you know what's funny is that
863-746.
Was it worth?
Whatever.
Was it worth?
Can you go to 3?
To be sent to the back of the bus?
You're not Rosa Parks, man.
Yeah, I'm on 3.
Hey, Bob, can you come to the library? There's a sovereign citizen that would like to speak with
That's
you.
an oxymoron.
It'll be a few minutes. I'm in CID in a meeting.
Okay. It's gonna be a few minutes. He's busy.
We'll wait here.
No, you're gonna go wait on the. When I finish identifying you, you're gonna wait on the sidewalk. You cannot be on the property. You're being trespassed. I'm telling you right now.
Well, I'm waiting to speak to the sergeant.
You can wait on the sidewalk. You cannot wait here.
You can't just kick me off of here.
Yes, I can. I'm gonna kick you off, sir.
Can I get his OLN and SOC? Can you do me a favor and give me your badge number? 863. What was your name? Hold on. You understand that you'll be held liable for what you're doing, correct? What are the last four? He keeps talking over me. Thanks. What's this then? I'm liable for what? Well, you can be held personally liable for violating my constitution. Oh.
Now, this person is an interesting individual because, again, this is someone who is
McCord? McCord? Do you have any idea what his ID number is? Yeah, 746. McCord, okay. Yes, sir. Well, you definitely be receiving something in the mail. That's absolutely fine.
approaching the situation in a very, very wrong-headed way. I want to point out this is someone who keeps repeating, they are a state national or some variation thereof, yet never presents any sort of ID that would identify themselves as, for example, a non-citizen of the U.S., and so on. Or even when it's requested, they don't provide a real name, a green card, and so on. That's because these people are not there to do anything except create mischief. Make a bad name actually for anybody who employs their sovereign rights, because people do have sovereign rights. That's a fact. But the way that this individual and similar people always handle it is the wrong way to do everything.
I just need you to leave, sir, please. So this is it? I don't get any paperwork? No, sir. Can I get a report number? I'm not doing a report on this, sir. You're not? Unless you'd like a report. Do you want a report? Yeah, well, that's what I was asking for. I need a report number. That's fine. And I actually asked you to grab their names so I know who they are so I can hold them responsible. You can call the library and get it. I'm not going to give you their information. Well, they're the ones that are... That's fine. They're the ones. So you don't care that...
So he's claiming, he needs everyone's personal name. It's very, very invasive. Okay? Again, how someone I know would approach that situation would involve getting their legal credentials of the owner and the manager of the place, taking it to court, or taking it also before a jury to go ahead and resolve that situation. And they would be allowed to, in most situations, right, peacefully be able to return to the property. Okay? No other escalation, no other issues later on either. This is someone who doesn't believe in being polite, who doesn't believe in doing anything proper, who just claims that they're supposedly a American national when they don't even have a legally registered ID for being, for example, a state citizen or a sovereign American in some respect, and who has none of the information for anything to do with the people there in general, doesn't know anything about what non-domestic means, that does not understand anything about the real terms when you use words like sovereign or anything similar. So again, I'm attempting to not be too confrontational about it, but this is a person who's only out there to cause chaos. I find it amazing they invoke that. They invoke the Sixth Amendment for literally anything that they choose. You know, the Sixth Amendment cannot be applied to any express purpose except that which is to serve equity for the purposes of the proceeding. You know, for the purposes of getting through the law that has to be dealt with. And I can assure you, most certainly, even in the cases when you are sovereign in certain respects, you still have to deal with, the law. And the Sixth Amendment is not something that you can just invoke any place and at any time you want.
It was 60 pages in total. I think it was a little more than 60 pages, but I'm pretty sure it was 60 pages. I had hand wrote it in jail while I was in the cell. I was in C-Pod, cell 228.
Dear Maura, am having a swell time here at the insane asylum.
And I wrote it handwritten. And in Massachusetts, there's Massachusetts case law, which is cited in my argument. So this is from Massachusetts Superior Court itself, or maybe from the Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts. I can't remember, but it's in my argument, which you can just call the clerk and ask for it. It's public information. There's a Massachusetts case which specifies that the courts of Massachusetts treat statutory exemptions as an affirmative defense. There's additional case law from the courts of Massachusetts that specifies an affirmative defense, or when an accusatory instrument raises upon its face the existence of an affirmative defense, then the argument fails to make a claim upon which relief may be granted, right? And obviously, when this fails to make a claim upon which relief may be granted, the case gets dismissed. In this argument, the judge had brought up the issue that, and he didn't specifically say that it only applies to civil issues, but he insinuated it without saying it. He made the argument of it only applies to civil arguments, but that's not what the courts of Massachusetts said. There's no case law that specifies that it only applies to civil actions. An example of that, and specifically a statutory exemption, which is an affirmative defense, and how the issue must be dismissed, is, as an example, if an individual is charged with the unlicensed possession of a firearm, and in the statute it says that you can't be charged with unlicensed possession of a firearm if you have a license to possess the firearm, then the individual who has a license would raise the argument that, well, I have statutory exemption because there's a statute that says I'm exempt, here's the license, and then the case would be dismissed administratively because the prosecutor would...
Now, this is, of course, nonsense. If you have anything to do with land and land records of any type at all, that needs to be something that you've handed over to people you directly work with, people who are in the county, kind of the county recorder or the recorder in your actual lawful assembly, which you should most certainly be a part of in that case. There's nothing that says you can deal with anything to do with land or real estate in any other type of manner that would allow you at least lawful access to that land in most cases, unless you've worked that out some way with direct people who you personally know and work with in your area, in your community, who can vouch for that, who can vouch for the land that you have access to and similar issues around that, or the title to that land. Secondly, you can't have anything to do with firearms in the way that they're saying, and possess firearms, you know, in any kind of capacity wherever you want. You know, that's a very important point I'm going to make again. You cannot have anything similar to that with firearms wherever you want, in the way that they claim, and everything about administrative, and that's just all nonsense that the government probably made up somewhere. You know, you cannot do that with any types of firearms. If you own firearms and you own them in the lawful, real sense of the word, then you are likely not any type of citizen, to be honest, but you're also not going to have anything that you belong to the Moors, or that you're part of the Moorish society, and similar things either. Really. When you really deeply think about that, I'd have to say probably not. Because the Moorish society and similar places are saying, you just take firearms wherever you choose to take them. I don't see that happening in any of the states that I've been to, in any of the states that my associate has been to. So what they claim here, and the argument that they make, it's very good to pay extremely close attention to the arguments they make, because that's a lie. Right? Sound off in the comments. How do you see it? What are your own personal ideas about this whole analogy of taking firearms, essentially, any place you choose, because of something to do with the Moor society or some other type of society or something else? Let me know. As always, I continue to bring you these videos, be able to demonstrate what's going on in our world today. Thank you.
They, fail to make basically they fail to make a claim upon which release may be granted because they can't prove that the individual.
So he makes the same claims that Darrell Brooks makes.
I cited this Title 33 of the Massachusetts statute
By using Statute 33 of Massachusetts.
The Marines, the Army, the Navy, the Coast Guard, the Air Force, and the unorganized militia, which would be the people, which would be, as an example, the Moorish militia.
This is totally false. You cannot have anything to do with a permit for firearms in any capacity where you have those wherever you want or wherever you please. He takes apart pieces of the Constitution and picks and chooses which ones he wishes to belong to, essentially. If he's very serious, or if these people overall are even serious about anything to do with the arguments they make, then they should learn, first of all, what citizenship actually is. Go back to the drawing board and find out, discover exactly what that is. Before they know anything about that, the rest of their arguments are moot. I wanted to point that out. A lot of people don't know that. Before they know anything about that issue, about what citizenship actually indicates, their arguments are moot. And importantly of all, right? Second of all, they want to create a society somewhere, the Moorish society or anything. Okay. That's part of free speech. I guess that's the way it is. You can make a society that's based upon cat in the hat. But you cannot in any way choose, right, administratively, every single part of how that society will be run. Because the law belongs to the people. It doesn't belong to any individual who just goes in there and starts making up administrative ideas or anything similar to that. and saying that you can carry firearms, for example, in those societies that you create anywhere you want is a load of nonsense. You cannot do anything even approaching that. But of course, he continues to speak about this and everything of how the Moors are going to make it happen. So, always a very important thing to pay attention to.
They don't know if and when that's going to escalate.
Note 6, 2 news invest.
Opened up a whole world for experts I talked with. Farmington police say during the stop chase, Allan asserted his independence from the law and his belief that he was not required to provide information to police. Court filings show his mother, Diane Allan, had the same beliefs. She took minor charges of driving without a license and registration all the way to trial. In the process, she sent several filings to the court, said she wasn't a resident of the U.S. government, and referred to herself as an American state national.
Okay, let me point out, this is the only thing I'll point out for this before moving directly to Darrell Brooks. Diane Allan specifically is a part of the U.S. government, is a United States citizen, because they have never done anything, nor did they wish to do anything about examining that belief system and walking the required path to removing themselves from that type of status. There is a path for being able to be a different political status and reassert your original rights as well. That is a legal process that involves entering various courts. People are very familiar with it. Sometimes it even involves being required to participate with whatever local chapter you belong to, such as your local assembly, or something to that effect. There is a process for it. It does involve a lot of work, and you do have to put certain key documents that are recorded in the court back into the land and so on to do that. Anyway, it's irrelevant here in this case. Diane Allan and similar are simply more sovereign citizens who had no interest in that and who have never attempted to seek out information about that. There is a little bit of information in the description regarding that of this video, so be sure to peruse that at your leisure.
I was able to see hair, which is what I have said previously.
Would it be fair to say that the alleged defendant that you just identified on the record for the court does not have hair?
You have shaved your head, yes.
Would it be fair to say that you have not seen the alleged defendant shave his head?
Objection. Relevance.
Grounds.
Overruled.
That's not a shot. It's not a slight in any way towards Your Honor. It's not. And I don't want that to be taken out of context as well. I will say, help is needed. Look at what you have done, which is you have been very, very keen. I believe that still a lot of issues there.
Okay, I'm going to say one thing here. Mr. Brooks belongs to an interesting group, allegedly known as the Moors, and he could belong to different groups as well, not just only the Moors themselves. No matter what courtroom you go into, you cannot use legal language like the alleged defendant is here and not say anything about your name unless essentially you wish to be on your way to the big house. Because again, these terms cannot ever be used in the courts or any court in that context.
Obviously, it would be hard to top what was already said about you thus far.
So Mr. Brooks believes in one key issue, apparently, and that is there's a separate set of laws for different groups, whether it's a church group or perhaps the Moors or any other type of group, because those laws are what need to apply in any courtroom that they enter into. These laws that allegedly apply to groups. Whereas according to the Supreme Court, the laws that apply in court or really anywhere, nearly in all cases apply to individuals and do not cross over and apply specifically to groups in some singled out fashion. At all, unless it is some kind of specific situation where the law requires a group to be a part of the process.
When I'm still trying to, I don't understand. It's not a delay tactic. It's not attempting to be disruptive. It's not intended to stop the proceedings.
So I'll just say again, it's clear that with Mr. Brooks' logic, it is always for a purpose, and perhaps that purpose also includes disruption. Maybe he does not understand the ramifications of his full belief system of belonging to some specific group, whether that be the Moors, for example, or just a choir group, or any other group, actually, in the USA. Because when you bring that into the process, you bring something very foreign into the legal process that is in the courts overall. Since the courts, and especially the jury, most of the time has absolutely no dealings with specific groups. And it's very, very rare that the law ever covers something that is specified and directed at a certain group. Thank you. What I wanted to point out is with Darrell Brooks, it's interesting when he speaks again.
Just stated.
Mr. Brooks, in relation to that subpoena, based upon my review for completeness, this court would note you have not named a person, you have named an entity, and the subpoena will be kept on file as part of the court record, but I'm not going to require the state of Wisconsin to testify in this case because they are an entity and you have not named a person.
Are they not? Or are they not the plaintiff, Your Honor?
They are the plaintiff.
How can a claim be brought against my client if I'm not able to face the accuser?
Okay, so here's where Darrell Brooks gets it wrong. The state of Wisconsin has nothing to do with it being an individual person whatsoever. The state of Wisconsin is an entity. a corporate fiction and an entity. And most, if not nearly all of these courts got that wrong because they claimed it was an individual. No. Look up the Book of Law. Go look up Bolivar's Law Dictionary with someone who could certainly school you. And an actual state national lawyer whom we personally know in the area who could school you on that. State of Wisconsin and so forth is not an individual. It's just a fiction. It's an entity. And so therefore, Mr. Brooks asks to face the accuser. The problem is you cannot ever bring the accuser in the room because the state of Wisconsin or the state of West Virginia or the state of Delaware and so on do not exist in that legal sense. They are a corporate entity that you cannot bring inside of a courtroom. They have no nexus with being an individual at all. And therefore, his argument here is very, very pretend. It's a made-up argument.
That I'm not awarded my Sixth Amendment right to face my accuser.
You cannot face your accuser when it's the state of West Virginia or the state of Wisconsin being the one who is accusing, since they are a fiction to start with. And therefore, not all police, but certainly there are those among the force of law enforcement and so on who know all of this and deny the fact that they are also sovereign citizens, like these sovereign citizen journalist kind of Bolsheviks. Okay? But they are. That's a very important distinction to recognize here. They most certainly are, because they're believing in this same school of thought and law, which does not, in fundamental value, doesn't exist. You cannot ever face the state of Wisconsin because the state of Wisconsin is a corporate, fictitious piece of paper. Same thing for the state of Ohio. They cannot ever be brought into a chamber and faced. They can be disciplined by a jury and then a grand jury of actual sovereign Americans, sure. And that's happened plenty of times, especially now. But they cannot ever be faced in a physical courtroom because the idea that they are actually an individual or a person or anything like that is absolutely fictitious. They do not exist in the real legal sense of the word, and they cannot be brought into a physical courtroom. So thank you again. Be sure to share and spread the word. Darrell Brooks has certain things a little bit backwards, doesn't he?
I'm not making any such determination here today. All right.
What law,
I'm going to turn to the district.
What law? You can't ever face the state of Wisconsin. That's what law. And then this last issue that I wanted to address on this aspect of the footage of sovereign citizens that have been doing different things and so on. I can tell you factually, for a fact, based upon the amount of times arrested, been inside court, all these different key issues, of course, that sovereign citizens are in no form state nationals or actual state nationals of the state that they live in, which has always been a thing that's existed. And the community, the surrounding community, of course, including the law enforcement community itself, respects and appropriately treats actual lawful state nationals, the way they should be, most of the time, from what I've understood. And in certain cases, it works out better than, you would certainly expect in those cases. But they have no familiarity with the term sovereign citizen, and they do not like this term for the same reason that a lot of us don't like the term either. A person who has any kind of sovereign rights, okay, or unalienable human rights, and let me make this 100% clear, cannot be dressed up in a costume and be a citizen of any type. They cannot be a citizen, bottom line. A person who has respected unalienable rights is not a citizen. That's all I'm going to tell you. So a sovereign citizen in itself is actually a word that's very, very charged, because it's impossible to truly be.
He basically told me that he wasn't going to answer any legal questions without an attorney.
Okay, so that's all we have.
An essential
Self. This is some weapons-grade ignorance on display here, and I think we should all be thanking him for his contribution to comedy.
And this legal traffic documentation is based on the non-legal traffic understanding. Is that correct? Your Honor, please object. Rephrase your question, sustained. This item is stopped because of safety and to obtain traffic documentation. That's based.
Okay, I don't need to say anything else here. It's completely obvious what the truth is. He asks, what is the relationship of the jurisdiction and what is the probable cause for stopping and taking certain things from the vehicle? Here is the probable cause. They are citizens. Still, no matter what they've argued to the contrary or stated on record anywhere, they are citizens of the United States. And that's all the probable cause they need to stop someone. So again, I hope you've learned some interesting things from watching these sovereign citizen types and how they actually do all the things they do, especially in court. Because, you know, there's a lot going on. Different areas are with the assembly also involved, are taking apart these banks, tossing them down for disposal, and along with them goes nearly all the so-called subject citizens. And so people like this, you know, I feel are very, very important. They understand and recognize they are out there. They are all over. And they allegedly go into these courts and they make these arguments. They say there is no probable cause. Well, one thing I'll remind everybody here today, because you've been very good in learning more about this, is no matter who you are, no matter where you are, if you are a citizen still, and you are legally recognized as a citizen, there is probable cause that you committed an infraction or perhaps a crime. No matter who you are, no matter where you are located, you are certainly under suspicion of possibly committing a crime. Because being a part of the citizenship umbrella, it acknowledges in some of the original text that it's a bit of a crime in itself. So thank you. Always a pleasure.
Your knowledge, when this incident occurred, was there any injury or death associated with this particular charge?
No.
And at that time, did you have a commercial driver's license endorsement? Or was this a commercial vehicle?
No.
Anything from the people?
Your Honor, the people are not contesting this motion.
Sir, based on your application, I am going to sign this order to set aside your conviction.
Thank you.
If you need a copy of this order, you'll have to contact the 14A3 District Court.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
So I just wanted to point that out there, Mr. Hilbert, or Hillert. He was involved in something interesting as well. And he had actual justice done. His criminal conviction for the issues around his conveyance or his car were set aside. That's just to show all you folks that when you do things right, when you do things properly, when you actually get yourself fully enrolled and engaged in not being involved in commerce and moving over to the non-domestic side, things tend to work out, sometimes much better than you expected. And that includes canceling your contract with being a citizen, a sovereign citizen, or anything like that. He worked at Ford Motors because he is actually a legally recognized state national now. He got some very good justice. And that's what people can expect in the world, sometimes out of nowhere, when they do things right. There's a way to do things right, and there's a way to do things wrong. And that's what you will learn, always, in this channel. Thank you. The last thing I needed to point out in this video, which is very important, this kind of short video update here, is I want you guys to remember and pay very close attention to what these alleged sovereign citizens and so on do and how they act, including Darrell Brooks, including Austin, including Derek, and so on and so forth. And I want you to remember this one age-old adage. It's actually in all the holy books, specifically the Bible. It states the following, I quote, "God is no respecter of persons." That's correct. God is no respecter of persons. So if you have anything to do with the quote-unquote citizenship, if you have anything to do with being a citizen or anything, I can't tell you what's going to happen, but it's certainly not going to be much of anything good. Okay? Because God is no respecter of persons. He does not respect anyone who is actually, really, truly a citizen. Yeah. Something to remember that. Always to remember. You know. Many of us, for example, we don't have any tax ID number. We don't have anything approaching that. So don't forget. You know, and of course, we're not citizens anyway. And that's, you know, that's understandable. But don't forget that it's written there in the books, the original book of law, and of course the Bible. God is no respecter of persons. So whatever occurs out in the courts or any of these other places and so on, you think God is really going to be looking out for you from up on high or anything to get everything sorted out? If you have anything to do with the term of citizen, just something to ponder and really think deeply about. And I'm not saying that Darrell Brooks and Jonathan and so on are absolutely wrong-headed. What I am pointing out and saying is people who are citizens ultimately can never, ever understand anything about sovereignty, nor anything at all about what America is in similar issues. And so it's something to always remember. And don't forget, when you see these actions, like we're shown in this video and similar things, then no matter what, there is something to that. So enjoy. Make sure to like, share the videos, get it out to the general public, and there'll be more to come. Thank you. And by the way, before anyone asks, yes, Mr. Ballin is not a citizen either, at all. Or even it's a crime and similar things. They are not. But again, there's a right way to do anything, and there's a wrong way to do anything. And when it comes to that specific issue of anything to do with citizenship, citizenship of any kind. You know, and maybe that's why we impose our will in some places, because a lot of the obvious citizens and so on that do all these things, they're always doing illegal things anyway, if they're some type of citizen and so on. Maybe that's why it happens. But if you have anything to do with that term of citizen, you cannot expect any protection from up above. God will never be any respecter of persons. It's the way it is. And there's something else that I want to show in the upcoming trial when they take that to trial as well. Thank you.